everybody, this is Tracy Filter from Tracy's Inkspot, here to show you how to assemble your World Card Making Day kit that I sent. If you placed an order with me in September of 2020, I promised you a free card kit. Make one, send one, so you should have enough materials to make two. So keep one for yourself and send one off to someone that you love. And World Card Making Day is actually this Saturday, October 3rd. So that was part of the inspiration, is to get us together and stamping. So what I did was I focused on, let's go down here a little bit, the Peony Garden suite of products. And that is on pages 82 to 84 of the current catalog. It comes with the prized peony set. And you'll see that we used the flower and the leaf images from that in your card kit. It has a set of matching dies that will make 3D versions of the peonies, or will also cut out the stamped images from the set. So that's really cool. You've also got an embossing folder called Dainty Diamonds. As you can see, it has some really cute little detail in there. Bring that up a little bit. Has a beautiful gray granite. Let me see if I can put it over something more pink. There we go. Gray granite satin ribbon, 1/4 inch wide, which is one of my favorite lengths to work with. Absolutely love this ribbon and wish it came in a whole bunch more colors. And then there are the elegant faceted gems, which are pretty sparkles, kind of like the little enamel dots, but with some sparkle to them. And there's kind of a clear iridescent, a pearly white, and kind of a coppery goldish tint in there, which is really cool. But to me, the highlight of the show is the DSP. So this is one side of the sheets. As you can see, there are some, the color schemes for this are basic gray, gray granite, petal pink, and white. And what I love about some of these, like this one here in the gray and white tones, is beautiful all on its own. These ones here, where they're a little bit more white-based, are very obviously pretty on their own, but you can also then take and color them, which is what I'm going to show you what we did in just a minute. So here's this side of them, and then I'll do a flip over, and you can see the back side. Really pretty patterns with just a little bit of texture, and this last one is like marble. Isn't that cool? This is one of those that is on sale this month of October, 15% off. It was our month-long DSP sale. Okay, so we'll set all that aside, and I'm going to raise you up for a second and set that up. Zoom in a little bit so you can see me. Okay, so in your kit, here's what you should find. You should find 2 card bases. The front of this has been embossed with the subtle embossing folder. You should find 2 rectangles of petal pink paper, 2 rectangles of white, and that'll end up layering on top of each other. You should have a panel of white for the inside that you can then write on or stamp on. You should have, for each card, an already colored flower, 2 already colored leaves, and you should have 2 pieces of DSP that are triangle shaped. I have one here, which will be making this card for you today. Okay, so first I'm going to show you how we got to this point. Like I said, the DSP comes, this one is kind of the gray granite and the white, and what I did was I took that and I colored it just to make it a totally different, nice little pop of color, and I colored it with my blends. So I have both shades of the petal pink, and I have both shades of olive, and I have gray granite. So I'm just gonna do a little bit here for you so you can see what I did. I like to start with the dark version, that's the light, the dark version of each of them. And I use usually my writing tip end. So it's more of the marker tip. And I'm gonna go through and highlight kind of the middles of flowers, some of the darker parts of stems, and that sort of thing. See how I go through, raise that up just a little bit so you can see. So I like to highlight, like I said, the veins of flowers or darker parts where there's already some shadow involved. And then I go back through with my lighter color, and you can decide if you want to use the brush tip or the other marker style tip. Even when I'm using my brush tip, I tend to use the side of it. I don't go directly up and down, because eventually that will break up the fiber on the end of your tip, and you don't want to do that. So I tend to do it just a little bit on an angle. And the lighter the piece itself in here, the more of that shading detail you'll see. You can go back into with the marker part, highlight a little more. The more you keep going over with the color, adding more layers, more depth, you'll get a lot more variation in what you see. So again, go as light or as dark as you like with that part. This is all up to you once you decided to use your colors on your own. All right, so again, for the petal pink, I'm going to, helps if I use the right end that I like. I highlight around some of the dark spots of the bud of the peony. And then I'm gonna go back in with my light and color over. So as you can see, I went and I did that whole thing, leaves and stems. And then I took, again, my brush point, just because it's wider, and I colored everything in between. And yes, this does take some time because this is a very detailed piece of paper with lots of space. But I liked the way that turned out. It highlighted such a great different spot of the paper. And even when you flipped it over, it kind of leaves behind a fun texture and pattern on that back side of the paper. Put it on the floor there. Okay, so that is how you got your piece of paper all colored. I did it with the blends. I think too, I'm gonna go back and grab one of these sheets. This piece of paper would be beautiful to color with. And you don't obviously have to stick to the color palette that they show in here. I meant to do some research to find out what other colors peonies might be, but you can imagine this in beautiful shades of purples and blues or yellows or whatever naturally happens with a peony. There would be some beautiful ways to color, or maybe just spotlight. Maybe take a section and just do one flower and leave the rest as black and white and just have that one piece really shine through. So that could be some really fun things you can do with that DSP. Okay, so again, you should have two rectangles. I started out with, two triangles. I started out with one rectangle, and then what you can do is you can take that over to your paper trimmer, and if you line up the opposite corners in the track where the blade is going to run, lay that back down. That is how you got your two triangles, okay? So as you can see, these are gonna turn out to be kind of like card opposites. So the first card I made, I used the triangle that would fit into here. And because this paper is directional, I mean, it would be silly to have the buds upside down. Then I wouldn't, flip this one around. But if you have a DSP then that is not directional, you can absolutely have the same layout each time and it won't affect a thing. Okay, so that is how we got to that point. Again, for coloring for this, I wanted to point out too, we're gonna use, whenever you're using your blends markers, you are going to want to use Memento ink. The blend markers are an alcohol-based marker, and Memento ink is water-based. So just like when you have the concept of oil and water don't mix, these guys will not mix either. So if you can keep going over that ink with your alcohol marker, and it's not going to bleed the ink blend, you don't get black hues into what you're coloring. The same is true then if you're using our regular Stampin' Write markers, which are water-based. You want to use StazOn, which is an alcohol-based ink. So therefore you want your ink and your marker to be opposite ink styles. Something to keep in mind if you guys are going to be using blends or regular markers in what you want to do. Okay, so I took my piece here and I stamped it and die cut it with those peony dies, and I did the same thing for the leaves, and then I colored again with the petal pinks. And the very center, I added a little bit of Flirty Flamingo. And you can see that looks pretty bright, but I did the flamingo first and then went over it with the two shades of petal, and that kind of blends it out a little bit, but it keeps that, you kind of get depth and dimension. You're going from light to dark and the very bright into the middle there. So that's kind of how I put that together. So I'll show you, I took the the flamingo and just did the center. And then I took my dark petal pink, and again, I highlighted in where there's already shading. I also like to shade, think of like if the light is coming from up or down. So I pretend it hits all the bottom parts of the petals, for example, that you see there. And here it might hit some top ones. I'm only gonna do just a little bit of this. I don't wanna take up too much time coloring for you. But there again, I'm gonna take my brush tip and just keep going over and over. And as you can see, that pink, that bright pink in the middle does blend out. So you don't see it quite as brightly as you did when I first colored it in. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of how to use your blends on this particular stamp set. Okay, ready for assembly. All right, so you should have your gray granite piece of cardstock that's folded in half already, or if it's not already, fold it in half, please. All right, you are going to take your petal pink rectangle, And we're going to add our adhesive and put it onto the white rectangle. This has a very tiny border, so just make sure you're leaving just that little smidge around the edges like so. Again, adhesive to the back of this, and because it's going on a surface that has been textured with an embossing folder, I'm going to make sure I hit actually all 4 sides. I don't always put that much adhesive on, but when you have a raised surface you're putting it on, you're going to need just a little bit of extra, and you might want to use your bone folder or your finger to kind of burnish that in just a little bit. Okay, so there you have that part right there. So you're going to take your triangle. If you have, it's going to be either up in this corner this way, or again, like the first card I did, it's going to be in the bottom corner. Okay, so we'll run some adhesive on that. Come on, there we go. And that's going to fit up into the corner. And it's going to completely cover. There should be no border to the pink, so you can go corner to corner and edge to edge. Okay, so there's that part right there. You should already have some dimensionals put on the back of your flower. So all you need at this point are some glue dots or other type of adhesive to put on the leaves. So I'm going to grab my glue dots. I like to put the glue dot directly onto the piece I'm taking. And again, so this is going to go behind the flower. I want the glue dot to be on the front or the stamped side of that image. And I'm going to stick this leaf down off into this corner here. And we'll do another leaf here. Glue dot up there again on the front side and sticking out of this edge. You can play with these if you want them to be more close together. You could definitely leave them both together, spread them apart, have them go whatever angle you like. Okay, this is what I like to call a cook's choice card. You guys can make these up however you like. You have the assembled parts. Okay, so we'll take off the dimensional backings. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. All right, and that'll just get placed right in the middle. Now, if you have a little phrase or a little word or something that you want to add in there, there's a little perfect spot right here. And if it's on this card, up here to leave a little phrase. Or you can leave it just as is. Very pretty note card. And again, you should have a piece of white that'll fit inside where you could stamp more messages or write in your handwritten note, that sort of thing. So the concept for this one was make a card, send a card. So you've made 2 cards and you get one to keep for yourself, which gives you a pattern to follow. So you should be able just to remeasure all the parts you got and do them that way. And then you've got one to send off to a friend or loved one that you haven't seen in a while. Alrighty, this would be a great layout concept for just about any kind of patterned paper or whatever you've got going on there. I did measure the paper out into, I'm just gonna double check, but it should be, yeah, it's a 3x4. So it's a nice cutting width for your DSP that comes in either a 6x6 or 12x12. The 3-inch measurement divides really well, especially for the 12x12. You'll get more out of the paper. And again, like I said, you take it, cut it, and you could cut it in half. You could cut it diagonally in half. Then you get multiple uses out of that one little rectangle. Okay, so I will bring you down like so, so you get a little bit closer look. There are your 2 assembled cards for World Card Making Day 2020. Thank you so much for everybody who placed an order in September and got these cards to make for free. If you ever feel like you would like to take a class or learn more from me, there is my website, tracyfilter.stampinup.net, and you can find me on Facebook at Tracy's Ink Spot. All right, thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy World Card Making Day.